The views expressed in this program are those of the hosts and guests, not Ben West Productions or its broadcasting affiliates.
I've walked in many shoes, from the pulpit to the prison halls, behind the wheel of a big rig, and now as a medical cannabis patient and an advocate for truth. Some of you know me as Yo, the Herbal Trucker, but today I'm stepping in as Yo, the Concerned Citizen. This is Yo Rants, Oversized Load, Civics Edition. We're calling out power plays, exposing broken systems, and lifting voices that refuse to be silenced. Passion fuels purpose, purpose activates power, and power, that's how we shift the system. As Kendrick Lamar said, this revolution will be televised, and I'm adding to the channel lineup. This is a revolution in motion. This is Yo Rants, Oversized Load, Civics Edition.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Yo Rants Oversized Load, Civics Edition. I'm your host, Yo, the Herbal Trucker, and tonight's convo is gonna be an edition that you're gonna want to see. Because we're getting real about what the heck is a lieutenant governor and what he actually does. But first, before we go back to our guests, I gotta rewind it back to a moment last year during crossover. This is what drew my attention to this particular candidate. And thank you, Aviva, for this content. Check this out. Let me find it. Oh, here it is.
All right, this is the last one. Recognize the senator from the 11th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, this is a cleanup measure. Ask for your support for amendment number 1.
Senator from the 14th.
Mr. President, thank you. I made a promise to several people today that I would impersonate the president of this chamber from the well today, so here it goes. I don't know what we're doing. I mean, this is a good bill, y'all. It's a good bill. I don't know why. I don't know why we want to put an amendment on it. It just don't make any sense to me. But anyway, y'all, we're not trying to ban hemp. We're not trying to ban Delta 8. Just vote it down. We'll do it again the right way. Thank you. I yield the will.
Did McLaurin do his impression of me right then? I couldn't hear. Is that what he did? All right. Recognize Senator from 13th.
Mr. President, I couldn't have said it better myself. Let's go.
All right, here we go. All those in favor, vote yay. If you're opposed to his amendment, vote no. Secretary, unlock the machine.
Gasoline, pretty and cosmic and smart. Gasoline, giving me your
Yeas are 7 and the nays are 47. His motion is defeated.
opening up all our hearts.
All right, this is the last one.
Dang, fellow people. And that's one thing that I can say. I know up under the gold dome, people can take matters seriously, but watching you and how your what appears to be lighthearted approach, how are you able to maintain that? I mean, that's just...
Well, thank you for asking and having me on. So yeah, I'm Josh. I represent North Fulton County in the state Senate, running for lieutenant governor. And you got a little sample there of the kind of hijinks every now and then I'll find myself getting into. It's a balance, right? Because, some of the work we do, a lot of the work we do is deadly serious. It's everyday people's lives. It's, if you are struggling with costs, we just voted on electric bills on Tuesday, had a resounding victory for a couple of the pro-reform candidates, the Democrats. But not just the electric bills going up, but, everything, right? Groceries crazy right now. All these matter to people. We can't make fun of those issues, and that's not what we're doing. But what I think does help to move the ball forward when we're trying to build coalitions, build friendships, and work across the aisle is not taking ourselves too seriously. Because if you have too much ego in this work, with anything, any relationship, you have too much ego. If that happens, then you alienate people. It becomes an arrogance thing, or I know better than you, and so I don't have to listen to you. And so that breaks down the democratic process when that type of vibe is presented. And so, my thing is, it actually took me 3 or 4 years. I used to be in the state house. I was elected as a state representative in 2018. I flipped a Republican district up in North Fulton and got into the chamber that way. But I was really serious. I used to tweet at people a lot. Like I used to tweet at Brian Kemp and be like, really aggressive. And what I realized was, and I don't know that he read it. I know it made me feel bad to be hostile all the time. And so I've got a comedy background. So I realized 2022, I gave this one speech. And a colleague of mine from Paulding County, he said to me after the speech, because I basically did like a little stand-up routine. And then after I did a little stand-up routine, I made my point. And I made my point to criticize what the Republicans were doing. Well, at the end of the speech, a Paulding County colleague goes, Josh, it was like you brought us in for a big hug and then you shanked us, right? And that really resonated with me, right? Is this idea of like, there's a marriage between friendship and comedy on the one hand, and serious business and real persuasion and argument on the other hand. You gotta really bring both.
You know what? That's one thing that I can say, because I know when I'm there, I'm walking around with my walker and just like, oh my God, the energy is just like totally different. I don't know. I mean, just meeting legislators like you allow me to see that there are real people up under the gold dome. And well, yeah, that doesn't seem to always just want to just be all hard notes. So they have a little life. But anyway, we're gonna move forward. We're gonna move forward to the first segment.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us a little bit about your background, because I kind of did it like ass backwards. Sort of.
No, it's all good. We jumped in with it. Me impersonating somebody from the well.
Oh my God. Yes. Because I'm like, okay, now what does a lieutenant go? We'll get to that.
Sure. So
I love it. Yeah. But go ahead.
So my name's Josh McLaurin, and I have been a state legislator for 7 years. Like I said, 4 years in the state house, 3 years in the state senate. And I'm an attorney. I practice civil litigation, which is like, it's business fighting, essentially. Like, you know, people have business disputes, that sort of thing. They go to court. What should I say next? I should say I do have a comedy background. I did a little bit of improv for a while in the city of Atlanta years ago, and I also ran the comedy show at my law school before I got my improv training, which is dangerous, right? You probably want to learn a little bit before you try it. But law students are not that funny. So it's kind of like that was a low bar to step over, to like run a comedy show at a law school, right? So did that back in 2012. And it's funny, my co-director for that law school comedy show, he's now a state senator in Alaska. So clearly there's some connection with the comedy and politics thing, but we can talk more about that later. But grew up in Cobb County. I was born at Northside Hospital. Went to school in town in Atlanta, and went to UGA for undergrad. Then went to Yale for law school, and I had a roommate we'll probably talk about at some point. But my roommate in law school was J.D. Vance for the first year, which, listen, y'all, I didn't know he was going to be like this. He went to Ohio State. I went to University of Georgia. So we thought, we're two state school guys. Like, we'll probably get along. And, for a little bit there, we were all right. But, he's taken a turn. I don't know if y'all noticed.
Just a little. I mean, because it's just kind of like apples and oranges, they're all fruit, like we're all people kind of thing. So you just choose which way you want to be real citric. Couldn't even get it out. But JD Vance. And also I had an opportunity to witness this year. I think it was one bill that you were proposing. I think it was around February, and you were on the floor discussing federal and state issues. Did you have much backlash from that? I think it was it SB 215 or something like that? Or because I know y'all have like a lot of numbers or something.
Yeah, it's hard to memorize all that. There's literally thousands of bills. So like a handful of bills we'll remember, but like we have to be reminded about like what specifically is in the bill. So we'd be like, oh yeah, that one, right? And then talk about it. But yeah, I mean, we talk about a lot of issues. I mean, to your point, like there's state and federal issues that come through the state legislature all the time. So like, for example, if somebody's having trouble with a passport renewal or like certain types of federal benefits, like veterans type benefits, sometimes that's not really for the state government. That's really more like a federal government issue where you got to call John Ossoff or Raphael Warnock or one of your Congress people. But there's federal money that comes through the state budget. In fact, half of the money we spend every year is federal money that just passes through the state, right? So you've got like $30 billion-ish by this point that are state tax revenues and 30 billion or so that are federal tax revenues. And if we legalize cannabis, that state number will be higher. We can talk about that too.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so like there are some federal issues that come through. Another way that federal issues touch the state government is sometimes state legislators want to do things that are not constitutional. So like, for example, there was a ban on trans healthcare in prisons that passed.
I remember.
And, look, anything you think about trans issues, I mean, people have different perspectives on all different types of trans issues, sports, you name it. But the one thing that is not in dispute is that if you are in prison in the state or in the country anywhere, you're entitled to health care. Like, you can't have a medical illness that goes untreated when you are in prison. That would be unconstitutional, because that's cruel and unusual punishment, right? And so if people have gender dysphoria, if they've got a diagnosable medical condition, they've got to get care for it. And all you do at the state level when you ban medical care in prison is you just speed up those lawsuits, because they're already suing to get that medical care. And all you're doing is the state is saying, well, now we're saying the quiet part out loud, which is we're never going to give you that care. So that means those people win faster in court. They get their medical care. And then guess what? Taxpayers pay all the legal bills because they had to go to court to sue to get their own medical care, right? And so I was against that bill, because I'm like, at the very least, why are we spending $4 million in state money on legal fees, that we shouldn't be having to spend because we're passing unconstitutional legislation? So again, there's one of those intersections where it's like, you can have a state level issue that you think is just Georgia state government, but the federal constitution sometimes prevents, or changes what we're able to do.
Yeah, I get that. I think I have that video right here where the legislators actually walked out. Let me see if this is
back. New developments at the state capitol as Georgia House. Welcome back. New developments at the state capitol as Georgia House Democrats walk out of the chamber right before a vote. Lawmakers were debating Senate Bill 185, a Republican-backed piece of legislation that would bar taxpayer money from being used to pay for certain treatments for state inmates, including gender-affirming care. Well, after a speech by Tanya Miller, a House Democrat, many of her colleagues left the House floor. The bill passed 100-2, with many Democrats staying outside the chamber. Democrats returned to the House chamber shortly afterwards, but not before accusing Republicans of wasting time on issues they say are not important to Georgians. Republicans.
Yeah, so that's something different that we did witness this year, since we know that the Senate and the House, well, both are majority Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the same bill, right? And so the House and the Senate Democrats did two different things on that bill. So the Senate Democrats, we stayed and we debated it, and then we voted no, right? Or a lot of us voted no. The House Democrats did a different approach. They did a walkout so they could do a press conference and talk about how much of a waste of time this was. And I think both approaches made some sense, just in different ways. Like, we wanted to debate the merits of the bill and explain why it was a bad idea, just like kind of the same arguments I made a minute ago. But then the House Democrats wanted to make a statement about how we were wasting time. And to give a little perspective, there are probably 3 people in prison in the entire state of Georgia that bill, SB 185, changes, their outcomes for, right? Or like, they have active lawsuits against the state because they were not getting the medical care that they needed for gender dysphoria in prison. And so again, it's like, Republicans want to spend all this time and this legislative, political capital and energy debating an issue that it only affects maybe 3 people in the entire state of Georgia. So like, there's been a kind of a narrative in the media in the last year or two, especially after Kamala lost, that was like, oh, Democrats are obsessed with trans issues. No, sir, no, ma'am. Democrats are not the ones bringing this legislation. It's Republicans who are bringing bill after bill after bill about trans people.
Why?
Every issue you can imagine, healthcare, sports, they're taking away state benefits. There's people who identify as trans in the state government as employees, and they've gotten their medical care without incident, hormone therapy, whatever, for like 20 years. Nobody asked questions. Nobody was worried about this. We're talking about like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys were, Britney Spears, early 2000s, right? And nobody's talking about this, but they were getting medical care. So why is it that in 2025, all of a sudden, Republicans are obsessed with passing 1 million pieces of legislation about this issue? You know why? They got nothing else to talk about. And it's easy for them to bully and punch down and pick a vulnerable group of people that can't fight back politically, and just pass bill after bill after bill to throw red meat to their own base to try to get their voters to turn out. But that's a thing in 2026 I want anybody listening to this to look out for, is Republicans are the ones who keep wanting to talk about trans issues. And Democrats are like, we would really love to talk about rising costs. We would really love to talk about quality of life and healthcare and the things that make the world go round. But, we have to keep fighting against these bullying attacks.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And since the topic of the show is, what does a lieutenant governor do? I mean, because I'm like, I saw your video. I'm just like, oh, my God. Are you like the assistant principal type thing? I'm just... what is it?
So the lieutenant governor role was actually created, I think, in the 1940s. It was for the first time in the Georgia Constitution. And a lot of states have lieutenant governors, not every state, but many states do. And some of them are appointed, actually. They're not elected directly, but ours is directly elected. And ours is not directly elected on a ticket. So you've got president and vice president that get elected together. But that's not how the lieutenant governor is elected. You have independent individual elections for governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, all these different what are called constitutional offices at the state level. Okay. And so the lieutenant governor, there's two things and only two things that the Constitution of Georgia really says about the lieutenant governor. The first is that they succeed the governor if something happens to the governor. So if the governor has to step down for some reason, then the lieutenant governor fills in and becomes governor for the remainder of that term, right? Then the second thing is that the lieutenant governor is the president of the Senate. And what that means, and you saw that video with Burt Jones standing up behind me while I'm speaking.
I'm sorry.
We'll keep going back to the video. But Burt Jones is a current lieutenant governor. And he's running for governor, so he's leaving that seat, which is why it's open and why you see a lot of people running for it. But he presides literally over the Senate. That's like the same word root as president, right? To preside. And so he's up there in front of the Senate chamber every day with a gavel. Do I have my gavel on my desk? I have a gavel that I use for inspiration. I just keep on my desk. I don't know if I've got it. I've got like an asthma inhaler, but I don't have my gavel. So okay, there you go. So, so basically he stands up there and he conducts business. And so he'll hit the little, wooden thing if people are getting out of control. Like if the Boy Scouts come and they're getting a little award and too many senators are talking like they're in middle school and they can't, behave, then he hits the gavel to make everybody shut up so they can listen to Boy Scouts. Or just like if a motion passes or a bill passes and it's like a procedural ceremonial way to mark that, he'll hit the gavel and it's like the bill has passed. Now, behind the scenes, though, the lieutenant governor also does a lot of really important things in the state Senate, appoints committees, right? The chair people of committees. So who's running the legislation before it gets to the floor? He decides which bills come to the floor. So basically, like if, let's say there's a bunch of Republicans who want something to pass, but maybe the lieutenant governor doesn't want it to pass, it still doesn't pass because he's not going to bring it to the floor for a vote. So it's a very powerful position. And it's sort of almost like you hear about the Speaker of the House on the House side. The Speaker sort of appoints everybody, calls all the shots in the state House, and the lieutenant governor plays a very similar role in the state Senate.
Okay. Well, as far as like with the lieutenant governor and seeing their role, it seems like it mirrors that succession as the federal government, just like the president related to the vice president. And he is the president of the House there too, correct?
But pretty close, right? So the vice president does preside over the United States Senate.
Yes.
And the one big difference is in the federal government, if there's a 50-50 tie in the U.S. Senate, the vice president can come break that tie. But actually, even though we have an even number of state senators, we have 56, the lieutenant governor does not have a vote. So even if it's tied like 28-28, that just means that the bill or whatever fails. So that you've got to always get a majority of the Senate in order to pass things.
So that's kind of like the difference between the state versus federal with like the filibuster that's being discussed right now federally. So it has to pass by majority no matter what, or how does that work?
So that's a little different too. So the filibuster is a rule in the United States Senate that says you can't get to the final vote unless you have 60 votes. Right. So it's called cloture, I think. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. Word. But basically, you have to have 60 votes to force the end of debate on a bill so that it can go to the floor for a final vote. That's basically what the filibuster rule means, is that if one of those members of the minority, all they need is, what is it? I'm trying to do math. So if they have 41 senators that don't want something to move forward, one of them can do the filibuster and just basically, keep running clock, and they never get to a final vote. We don't have a rule like that in the state Senate. So like you've seen maybe some inspirational stories around the country of where like, a woman wearing tennis shoes speaks for 12 hours or 15 hours.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
still happening, right? Like we don't have something like that in the Georgia legislature. Like we just run out of time and they say you're done and they sit you down. So we can't block anything from passing just because we have over 40% of the seats. In order to block something from passing, we'd either have to have like a job like the lieutenant governor where we could keep it to the floor at all.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Or we would have to have a majority or 28 votes or more to stop the bill from passing. Now, I will warn everybody, lieutenant governor's power is a lot of it's written in the Senate rules. So it's not in the Constitution, but like the committee stuff, the bill stuff. So if Republicans are really gnarly, we've seen them do this before. If Democrats win governor, lieutenant governor, there's a chance that they will strip the powers out of the rules and make the lieutenant governor a less powerful role because a majority of the senators can decide to do that. Now, if they do that, that's going to be one of those things that's like when you see stories about in other states where they hold special sessions and they try to take all the power away. It'll be a power grab if they do that. But I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah. And like, so basically what kind of power does that office really hold outside of that? So, yeah. Yeah,
there's three things that I think lieutenant governor could do, even with the powers if they get changed by Republican majority. The first is it's a bully pulpit. So one thing that Democrats have been really bad at in the last 10 years is messaging. We don't know how to talk to people, right? No offense to Hakeem Jeffries, but, the alphabet soup, right? AA, BB, CC, right? Like, I think voters really want authenticity right now. They want to feel like they're really connecting with the actual person that they're looking at. And it's not just all a show. And so, to get authentic people elected, we've got to just message better and put people in positions of power that, run campaigns where we're showing who we really are, where, maybe we're using a little comedy, right? Our social media video, or maybe we're just mixing it up just a little bit. But if we do that, then we can shape public opinion. So much of the problem with our media, environment and public discourse is a lot of times people don't even know what's happening because they're not hearing that it's happening from credible news sources or leaders who need to keep them informed. And one of the ways that Republicans have, kept a control on their base is by lying to their base. Republicans say, elect us, working people, and, we'll look out for you. We'll give you a hand up, not a handout. And then what do? A bunch of tax cuts for the rich, right? So the importance of being a leader in one of these roles is you have that bully pulpit who can explain and message to the public what's really going on. So what we need is storytellers. We need people who understand how to string a sentence together and tell people what's really going on and keep people engaged and entertained. And so that's a really big part of shaping public opinion. So that's the first big thing the lieutenant governor can do. The second thing is procedural tactics, right? Like maybe you can't always stop something from happening, but some of these guys might have dinner plans at 7:00 and they really want to hurry up and get out of the building and they want to pass their terrible legislation, their bullying legislation and then leave so they can make their dinner plan. Well, maybe they don't get to leave for dinner. If you're going to pass, hateful legislation that hurts people, maybe you're going to have to miss your steak dinner reservation, right? Like, just using that gavel strategically to try to, make it painful for them to do things that are wrong, that are against the will of the people. And then the third thing, besides what we say, bully pulpit, procedural tactics, would be fundraising. Once we get a foothold as Democrats at the statewide level, we just flipped the first statewide seats in like 20 years.
I saw that.
Right? So we had the federal seats we just flipped, Ossoff and Warnock, but these are the first state government seats that we've flipped in a very long time. And so if we flip more of those, if we flip governor, lieutenant governor, all of a sudden, already the eyes are on Georgia, but it'll be even more so. It'll be like people nationally are looking at us like, wow, Georgia's really not just a purple state anymore. They're starting maybe to become like a blue state. And then once that happens, we start to raise more money, we start to get more attention and more, more energy and vibrance in our efforts to keep flipping the state. And so it's almost like dominoes or like a waterfall. Once you get governor, lieutenant governor, some of these other seats and they're Democratic, now you start to look at these majorities, state Senate majority, state House majority, those start to crack and we start to elect more Democrats to those seats as well. So those are the three things I want people to focus on. Getting our story out, doing a little tactics to make life a little harder for people who are trying to pass hateful legislation, and getting our story out nationally, not just to Georgia, but to fundraise and to keep fighting to try to make the state blue.
And yeah, you keep talking about fundraising. I just see how it seems like in the past few years, how the Republicans been able to get an upper hand through legislation with fundraising. When you get in office, well, you know what? We can say a whole bunch of things of what you want to do in office. How will you be able to reach across the aisle? Do you feel that you can?
Absolutely. And listen, there's no better feeling than being a politician and talking about some stuff you've already done, right? Like to your point, we're not talking about stuff we're about to do. We're talking about stuff we already did. I got the first ever statewide regulation passed on the car booting industry in the state.
I remember that. You know what?
Yeah.
When I go, I'm going to add that to this clip. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, I was the guy who was trying to ban the boot for 2 years. So if you heard that on like ATL Scoop was showing all those clips of like all the booting videos or whatever, I'm the guy who dropped the original legislation 2 years ago, trying to ban booting entirely in the state of Georgia. Now, that made some people upset, right? Because you got these big property owners, they want to be able to boot. Like there's a lot of pushback on that. And I didn't have the votes. I'm a Democrat, right? Like Republicans control the legislature. And so if Republican leadership doesn't want to do that, and by the way, the booting industry has lobbyists. They got paid lobbyists who are some of the most experienced lobbyists at the Capitol. They're very effective. And so when they fight a piece of legislation, they usually kill it. So they fought me hard for 2 years. So here's what I did. I said, well, if I can't ban the legislation, or ban booting rather, then I'm going to water it down just a little bit and make it a regulation bill because there's no statewide regulation on booting right now. There will be January because of the bill. But for 15 years or so, we've had regulations on the towing industry where common sense stuff, like for example, a towing company is not allowed to wait around on the lots for you to walk into a rack room shoes so that 5 minutes after you walk into the store, they can just pick up your car and go. Can you imagine how crazy it would be if a towing company could just pick up your car and go?
Yeah.
While you're in a store.
It's kind of stalkish.
It is. And it's stalkerish. And what do booting companies do? They sit around and they wait, and they've got somebody in their car idling, and you go into the Arby's instead of the Chick-fil-A, and they track which way you're going, and then they put a boot on your car. Or maybe you accidentally pressed the wrong button when you were putting your license plate number in. So it's like one letter off. So they say, all right, I'm going to put a boot on. Or your tires touching the edge of the parking space by like a hair, so you're not parked correctly. They put a boot on. And then what? $75, you're detained. They won't let you go until you pay it. And even if you call 911, police comes out, what are they going to say? They're going to say, well, go ahead and pay it today. You can always challenge it later. But who's really going to file a lawsuit and go fight? It costs more than $75 to go fight it, right? Mm-hmm. So people are just thankful it's over. They pay the money. It's like a hostage situation. Then they leave and they forget about it. And that's how the booting industry makes money. They sit around and wait. They throw the boots on cars. And get this, a lot of people don't realize this. The booting companies very often pay a kickback to the property owner where the boot happens. So I want you to think about this. $75, maybe $37, half that boot goes to the property owner that you're going to visit as a kickback. So think of it this way. You got hedge funds from out of state that own all these properties downtown. They're not making money yet because they want to wait for that price to get right before they sell it, right? The downtown properties they're sitting on. So what are they? They're parking lots. And what do they want to do? Well, they don't want to pay a property manager to have to, monitor these lots because they're out of state. They don't want the expense, right? So rather than pay a property manager, these companies get paid by the booting companies for the privilege of the booting companies acting like cowboys on the lots to manage them. And I got an email that a lawyer sent me. Oh yeah, this is like a smoking gun email where a property owner was complaining to the booting company, why are our monthly payments so low this month? Normally you pay us more. So I want to keep in mind too, when you go to CVS or Walgreens or you park in a lot to go somewhere, a lot of times the company that you're visiting, like to buy from, you know, the restaurant, the retail store, they're not the owner of the property. They're just renting the property from some hedge fund in Chicago. So there's two teams. Okay. I want to really frame this up for everybody. There's like you and the Popeyes chicken are on the same team. But the hedge fund from out of state that owns the land under the Popeyes, they're on a team with the booting company. And that's who's fighting, right? Because the booters and the out of state guys don't care what happens to you. But the restaurants and the retail stores do, and they wish they could stop it, but they can't, right? Yeah. So I wish I could tell this to like everybody in Atlanta and everywhere else. Like, this is the real story on booting. And so like, it is a total cowboy industry. It is run wild. They don't give a crap about people, about drivers, and they just extort people constantly. So I got the first ever, and here's the final, you know, landing the plane. I had to work with Republicans to do this. So there were Republicans who had gotten booted before, and they were like, oh, hell no. And they wanted to ban it. And so I worked with the Republicans who were anti-booting, and it was actually their legislation that I had to take a ride on. So they sent some legislation about different car-related, motor vehicle-related topic. And because it was the same topic, I was able to put an amendment on it on the Senate floor to regulate booting for the first time. And they wanted that. And then the Senate passed it, and it went back over to the House with that additional language that I put on it about booting, and it passed the House, and it went to the governor's desk, and the governor signed it. All those guys Republicans. So yes, the booting reforms we're doing in Georgia, just the first step to banning the boot, that is a bipartisan effort that I was able to lead.
Well, you know what? That is great. Quite a few people appreciate that effort, and everybody able to work together. And so speaking of that extortion, there's another, I guess, group that's out here, the HOA. There's quite a bit of things that's been in the media about the HOA, people's homes being taken for a couple of $1,000s just because of these astronomical the HOA fees. Yeah.
And the fines, right, that they get to pay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how do you see that you're going to try to encourage or encourage the legislators to propose what type of HOA type legislation to try and stop this the same way with the booting? Or
so actually, I actually worked on that exact issue this past session. Okay. So Senator Donzella James, who represents part of the metro area, she this has been her big, you know, the whale that she's trying to take down, right, is the HOA abuses. And so she had some legislation that was going to create more rights for homeowners, right? Like more process. They've got to give you more warning and more notice, and it raises the amount of money that you can be in arrears before they can take action. And then they can't immediately take action. Maybe they've got to go through like a mediation process, right? Where you've got to negotiate with the HOA board in good faith before any sort of action should be taken, right? So like, it's not that you want to take away an HOA's ability entirely to enforce rules, because that's what, you know, if you buy into a community, if you know they've got an HOA, part of the deal is like, we're a community and we got to have some basic standards for how to live. But that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is when HOAs are completely unaccountable, when they're like a club of friends who get, you know, power goes to their head and they start putting a bunch of fines and fees on people for no reason except just irritation and power tripping. And then, like you say, people's property rights are threatened because of that power trip. That, I mean, that's the American dream in this country is home ownership, right? And for that to be threatened because a handful of people want to have it their way or the highway, obviously a lot of people have a real issue with that. So what it's all about is balance. And so this legislation would have been designed, it didn't pass this year, but we're still working on it, would have been designed to basically create a lot more process to move that needle away from this like abusive power situation more towards just like the basic functions an HOA is supposed to play, where they can't have, you know, too much power with any one homeowner.
Well, that sounds great. I'm going to move on to, I guess, what I advocate for there at the Capitol.
Let's do it.
Medical cannabis. Many people don't know we have a medical cannabis program. Well, probably because we don't have one. We actually have a low dose THC program,
Right.
but we're trying to expand that program.
Right.
Last year, there was legislation proposed that passed crossover that didn't make it to the House, to the floor of the Senate or the House.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on this past legislative session and how it possibly ended strange?
So there's a handful of things that are all happening at once. And I want to lay it out. I know you know this, but I'm going to lay it out for your listeners, the landscape, right? You've got a low THC oil program from the last few years. And it was not really able to do anything for anybody for years because there were also rules that said you couldn't bring low THC into the state across state lines. And there were no producers in the state at that time who were producing the low THC oil. Now, we permitted a few. We had a request for proposals, and there's legislation to award contracts and permits, right, licenses to a handful of companies to start producing low THC. But there's not enough people on the registry. I think it's maybe a few thousand, like a couple tens of thousands or something.
33,000, I think.
Yeah, it's not that many. And so we don't need actually a whole bunch of producers to supply for that number. It's actually oversupply at the moment. But again, the production's still slow. And so the low THC program has just been creeping along very slowly. Now, the politics of this are because there's been a stigma, as you know, against cannabis for a very, very long time. It unfortunately got Schedule 1 back in, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Because it was caught up in the culture war. It was the anti-establishment Vietnam War counterculture movement era. And along with psychedelics, it was both cannabis and psychedelics got Schedule 1, even though they don't actually meet the criteria for federal Schedule 1, which is that it's harmful and addictive, right? Yeah. Exactly. And so it was all culture war, all stigma. Well, that doesn't go away so easily. So even if the science is changing and we see, that, this could actually have therapeutic benefits for people, both psychedelics and cannabis, but in very different ways. Now, you've got the science that's leading these medicinal, approaches and the legislation to open it up, but the culture is slowing it down. So you still got all these very conservative Republicans who do not want to legalize weed, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, in the state of Georgia because they think that it, whatever their pre-existing beliefs are about the culture. But here's what's funny. And now I'm going to talk about the other track, not the low THC, but hemp. Okay. So hemp farming is a very profitable, form of farming in the state of Georgia. And there was a federal farm bill that legalized throughout the entire country the manufacture of hemp. Well, your listeners may know, probably do know, that hemp chemically is a cannabinoid or contains cannabinoids, and chemically can be processed in a way to make it chemically completely identical to THC delta 9, which is the molecule that makes you high from marijuana or cannabis. So the farm bill accidentally legalized a whole bunch of weed. And when you go to the store and you see, a can that's got delta 9 THC, it's chemically, even though it's hemp derived, it's chemically identical to the flower. Well, what's funny about this is that you suddenly have the economic incentives that Republicans in the state have that are at cross purposes with the culture war, right? And so you got some Republicans who may use the products themselves. They like the economic benefits of farming hemp and using hemp products, and they're not with the culture war. And then you've got other Republicans, they're very much still on the culture war bandwagon. And there was a Republican in the state Senate who gave a speech this year that was like, guys, we basically already have legal cannabis. And he's acting like that's a bad thing. But I know for a fact, a lot of his voters, because I've knocked on doors of Republicans when I run for office, I know what they really think about this.
You just smell it in you just smell it in the air, right?
they're not with him. And so you got these vestiges of these crusty politician vibes, right, at the Capitol where they're still litigating this culture war. But I can tell you for a fact that the vast majority of people are on our team with this. And that's why there was a bill that was supposed to ban Delta 8, or is it an amendment? So there's a hemp bill.
Yes.
Yeah, we can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, that particular bill, because like that particular bill, I do remember that it was the HB 265. I do believe that is where they were trying to ban the drinks here in Georgia, which I'm thinking, I'm like, I'm kind of like a conspiracy type, theorist type person. And I was like, you know what? The way it was presented on the floor makes you wonder if someone, not to say somebody did it, but like a lobbyist told that particular, hey, why don't you go ahead and sensationalize this moment so that we can get more people out looking for this type of drink before we ban it and hoard it.
That would be too galaxy brain for politicians. That's too involved. Yeah. So
I got you.
Yeah. Most of the time, if you have a choice between conspiracy and incompetence, it's the incompetence, right? It's not people not that artful in their plans. So I think that the issue is this culture war, right? Where the same conservative forces that don't want liberalization of cannabis access are looking at the access that already exists, and they're horrified because they know something about these issues, political issues, and voters, which is once voters have access to something, very hard to take it away. You see this with the healthcare subsidies in DC right now, shut down.
Yes.
So Republicans are hopping up and down mad about, well, these were supposed to be temporary subsidies. We weren't supposed to be subsidizing healthcare permanently. This was just a COVID era, Obamacare subsidy. Well, tell that to the people who can't afford healthcare without it. Because now they've got it. And right now they got healthcare and they're going to the doctor. They're appreciating having access to medical care that maybe they've never had before. They're getting treatment for real illnesses. And now Republicans are saying, we'd rather shut down the government than pay you those subsidies. I mean, that's crazy. And I don't care if it's only a couple years. Like once people are used to something, they're used to it and you can't really take it away. And so that's the same thing with these hemp products is there's a thriving industry. And guess what? It's not just the voters. The alcohol industry has already started to pivot to cannabis-infused sodas and drinks because they know where the future's headed and they want in on the action. And so what's really funny is you might think, oh, there's powerful lobbyists who are trying to crush the weed sodas. Actually, it's the opposite. It's that these big financial interests want the weed sodas to be sticking around because they have already started diversifying their portfolio and making a bunch of money out of this. So it really is you've got three groups. You've got the industry, you've got the voters who overwhelmingly want this, and then you've got some conservative politicians that say they still want to keep fighting a culture war. The latter category is who's going to lose, because when the industry and the voters are aligned, it's not going to happen. So they first put an amendment on to ban the sodas, and your boy doesn't move for reconsideration very because usually it's a waste of people's time to say, can we redo that vote we just did? But I popped all my reconsideration votes when the Senate banned the weed sodas. The House took it out. They didn't do it, but the Senate passed a version that banned it. I was like, is this thing on? Can we redo that vote? So there's a video somewhere of me saying that.
Hey, you know what? I'm going to find that video and I'm going to make sure I post it with the recap of the post-production in this one. But I know that we were speaking about why some people want to keep this plant illegal. Now, I do know, what's her name? Dr. Jasmine Clark. Yes.
Congress, yeah.
Yes. She's running for Congress. And she actually has legislation right now, HB 496, that's about the smell bill, like the protect your Fourth Amendment right. Yeah. So leading into that, I have a video for that. This right here, it could be the reason why a lot of our, I guess, cannabis is still illegal. I don't know. It's about making money. And you know how people want to make money.
Place out there. I don't want state prisoners, okay? They are a necessary evil to keep the doors open, that we keep a few or keep some out there. And that's the ones that you can work. That's the ones that can pick up trash, the work release programs. But guess what? Those are the ones that they're releasing. In addition to the bad ones, and I call these bad, in addition to them, they're releasing some good ones that we use every day to wash cars, to change oil in our cars, to cook in the kitchen, to do all that where we save money.
That's what I'm talking about. And you think about someone who consumes cannabis, psilocybin, or any type of holistic product to make you feel good. They ain't trying to fight. We just got back from Denver and we were on a cannabis bus. And it was so peaceful. Shout out to Med CannaCon 2025. We had a wonderful time. I mean, just to experience, to be with different people from all over the country, the world, on this one bus consuming this product. Because I remember me. I'm a former truck driver, and I know for a fact I had road rage all the way to when I was real sick to want to fight, and I can't even walk. And so cannabis brings peace. It might not be for everybody because a lot of times people are caught up with the stigma or just don't know how to balance it. So, yes. What do you see yourself doing next session? I know it's a bunch of issues, with cannabis. I mean, do you see, because I know right now we're waiting on the House to get a vote on SB 220 and y'all are waiting on HB 227. I don't think that's gone through the committee, just so that we can change the name of this program to medical cannabis because it's low dose THC.
Right. Well, first of all, let me address that video you played because that's an absolutely shocking video. I haven't seen that before. Can you tell me who that guy was?
Okay, he is the sheriff from Lafayette, Louisiana. I'll be sure to send that to you. I'll send you the link. This was some years ago because I'm a former correctional officer and I know how here in Georgia, the ones that are incarcerated right now, when I was there, they were cleaning the governor's mansion, the GDC. I mean, it's just, they utilize the work.
That's right. Well, he said the quiet part out loud, right?
Yes.
Which is that the prison industrial complex needs that free labor, wants that free labor. And it's not about whether these people are morally blameworthy and whether they committed certain crimes or, need to do their time or need to keep society safe. He acknowledged, he said, there are good ones. There are ones that are not going to be threatening to society, that shouldn't even be there, but we need them for their labor. And, it's the whole slavery by another name thing, right? It's the 13th Amendment that says slavery is abolished unless, right? 13th Amendment doesn't completely abolish slavery. It says unless people are, convicted of a felony incarcerated, right? So states are able to use these prisons basically as slave shops if they want to. So in any event, I think it's important to keep that type of narrative front and center when we talk about the incarceration, the criminalization of people based on cannabis. And I think one of the really important things we need to be focused on is as we liberalize access to cannabis, we cannot leave behind the people whose lives have been ruined or at least substantially burdened by a criminal record or criminalization of substances that now all of these people in positions of power are starting to enjoy because they're legal. So what a horrible irony and inequity it would be if we left that legacy of criminalization, let that stand and let those people continue to rot as we keep liberalizing access. So I say all that just to say, too, for next session, that I think one of the biggest things that we can do is, number one, protect access to hemp products. Because they're going to keep coming for that, right? It's not like just because the industry and the voters are all on the same team that those conservative politicians are not going to keep trying to pass legislation that reduces access. They're going to keep trying to do it. But we got to protect that access. The second thing that I think we need to do is as we get closer and closer to full legalization, whether you want to call it recreational or whatever, is we need to start thinking about the reform, the redress efforts, right? The justice efforts we need to put forward for the people who have already been wrongfully convicted and sentenced under regimes that we no longer think are moral as a society. We have to do a sentencing review based on cannabis. I hope that happens at the federal level, but the federal government can really only affect federal sentencing. We've got to do a state level sentencing review just for the state law violations. And, there'll be some questions about how to draw lines. I mean, if you're working with a cartel from Mexico and you're carrying AK-47s and moving tons of stuff across the border, that's a little different than somebody that's just caught with a joint in their pocket, right? But to figure out all those distinctions as we do that, but it's imperative that we do that.
Yeah, to add in there federally, because I already see how last year's session with the SB 494, I guess I just keep pulling up the numbers like Rain Man. But
you already know. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Most people don't know the numbers.
Yeah, last year with 494, I know that the organization that we represent, the Georgia Medical Cannabis Society, we actually, I can't keep saying we because this is a nonpartisan podcast. It's solely separate. However, my advocacy group that I do work with, basically, we called it out last year. We tried to get the governor to basically, we call that veto that particular bill. But, we were small in numbers, or, we just needed a little bit more effort. And plus, we were being sounded out by some of the big box companies that were like, no, it's a great bill. But now it's like, okay, a bait and switch. So right now that's going on as of June 25th, 2025. I know they did some work on it. The Agriculture Rural Department, HR 4121, that particular legislation right now is going to close that loophole while they're still trying to keep everybody busy at the state level. So we have to make sure that well, you know what? That's pretty much on the job of those lobbyists and stuff. Because I don't get paid for this. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so I need to. I'm like, look,
artwork for you. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'm doing this right here basically because look, I just want to keep myself busy, and plus, I want to be a part of the community and try and be a part of change. But yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and I'm gonna make sure I share that article with you about 4121, since I know that you were speaking about hemp, and I know dear to our hearts there is a consumption lounge as far as hemp loving place, because we love our hemp people, because before the medical cannabis program was actually accessible to patients, we depended on the CBD stores. And they closed a loophole. Denver, on the other hand, Denver and California banned hemp products, the other cannabinoids that matter to the body. And THC found out too at MedCon 2025 that THCA has medical properties. So if they had only just created or listened to some of the advocates that were saying, hey, look, all you have to do is create a serve safe so that you're able to get the hemp provided to be only at specialty stores and not these gas stations, because they always mess it up because it's about the dollar.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there is a quality concern, right? Like, I think we're in such a sensitive time right now culturally with cannabis, where there's like real promise, real opportunity for industry to expand, for people to get care they need, for, safe recreational substances to be available. Like, this is a window of opportunity. The problem is, if, like you say, if somebody screws it up for everybody, right? If you've got stuff that's not got basic quality standards, if there's too much like heavy metals and stuff in it, then it can give the entire industry a bad rap. So it is really important for the safety of the entire industry and for the continuity of the entire industry to have some basic guardrails. But that's like anything else. That's like any other product that we allow to be sold on the market. In theory, right now we got to shut down, the federal government shut down, right? But in theory, you have regulators and people who are monitoring the quality of this stuff to make sure that it's safe for consumption. So this is this like really critical window where, and the reason I want to protect hemp access is the more people that try hemp products, the more socially acceptable it becomes. That cultural stigma is less and less. And then there's even less ability for the reactionary politicians to go try to ban everything because too many people in society have had access.
We got you. And all righty then. I think we're coming up to the next section.
Are you listening? Damn.
All right. It's that time, what we call the Herbal Trucker awakening moment, or your rant of the day. Senator, this is your mic. You've got 60 to 90 seconds to speak from your heart and go off about any issue. Reflect on your journey or drop something that you think voters really want to hear. I'm gonna put you full screen.
Oh wow! I get the full undivided.
Yeah, you get that full effect. Okay, you ready? Here we go.
Ready.
Yeah,
right.
let's go.
I'm going to swing for the fences here, and I'm going to try to sum up what I think is going on with politics in general and why Trump has changed our politics and how people who want something different than Trump have to respond. Okay. So the way that Trump really broke politics is he figured out this is entertainment. Right? We don't have to talk about the issues even. We don't have to even make sense. As long as I get on TV and I do a little dance and I'm entertaining and I fight with my opponents, then I look like I'm the real me. I'm having fun. People can relate to that. They're entertained by that. And I think that's how he was able to get so much free media in 2016 and keep getting elected and keep having his, political movement going. So Democrats are all like wondering, well, how are we supposed to break through? How are we supposed to message to people when, how can we compete with that? Right? We want to talk about policy issues. We want to talk about rising costs, but nobody's listening to us. And I think the key is Democrats have to stop being depressing. Democrats can't just be humorless and whiny and, wagging a finger all the time and talking about how bad Trump is or how bad everybody else is. We've got to have fun. And so part of that's like comedy. We've been talking today about comedy. Some of that is just not taking yourself as seriously or being able to, shoot the crap with people and just have a good time and be yourself. But then we still have to stay focused on policy, right? As once we gain trust, once we can show that we're really ourselves and we're real authentic people that are just trying to do the best thing we can for our communities, then we can have those conversations about, hey, maybe these tariffs, Trump's tariffs are a bad idea and they're making all the grocery store prices go up and all the consumer good prices go up. And we can talk about ICE and the fact that, well, they're raiding apartment buildings and putting kids in handcuffs because they're not just arresting the dangerous criminals or whatever they said they were going to do, but they're arresting mom and pop store owners and little kids and deporting kids who are undergoing cancer treatment, right? But we got to get to a point where people trust us first, where we can be entertaining and normal human beings who are just relating before people will listen to us about the policy issues that matter. And so I think that's how Democrats have to learn from Trump is we've got to realize we can't just lecture people all the time. We have got to be real people who relate, who can bring a dose of comedy and lightheartedness to all the serious topics.
So now we're going to go ahead and get ready to close out. We're at the lightning round right here. So
all right.
Let's end this with a fun note. It's been fun the whole time. I'm going to try my best to be rapid fire, but hey, I like to slow stroll it a little bit sometimes.
I'll be quick too.
Okay. Last show you binge watched.
Last show I binge watched. Oh man, I was watching Righteous Gemstones with my girlfriend. That's a funny show.
Okay. If you could pass one bill tomorrow with zero opposition.
Expand Medicaid, because that's the single biggest piece of legislation that would help as many people as possible, as immediately as possible. It would give up to 500,000 Georgians health care insurance who don't have it right now.
Okay. Go-to snack during a long committee session.
Oh, go-to snack. Now, it's got to be, the Capitol doesn't have a lot of snacks, so I got to think about what I would have at the Capitol for a snack. Probably something really unhealthy. Probably like a Little Debbie or something, like something packaged out of a vending machine, Okay. Georgia politics in one word. Georgia politics in one word? Oh, man, that's really hard. Lightning round.
Just playing.
Folksy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. One voter question you wish people asked more.
Is this candidate a narcissist? Because listen, it doesn't matter what party you are. If somebody's a narcissist, it's bad news. It's toxic vibes for everybody. Like there's Republicans I'd rather work with than I won't say who, a couple Democrats who might be on that narcissism spectrum. So
okay.
If you're a voter, you need to ask, like beneath the surface, is this person chill? Are they arrogant or are they down to earth?
Okay. Here's the final and last one. What is your campaign theme song?
Oh man, my campaign theme song. I would need a lot longer to lock in. Can I do like a temporary answer?
Temporary. Yeah, because like I said, because I don't know, because I know I got you, because it's not like Eye of the Tiger or something.
I'm getting like an Iron Man vibe. Not that I think I'm Iron Man, but like the musical vibe of Black AC/DC. Like in the Iron Man movies, it's like boom. Spout out. Spout out. In this moment, I'm feeling that. But I reserve the right to change my answer.
I'm going to get ready to close this thing out right here, because this has been a wonderful, and I really and truly appreciate you, Senator.
Thank you.
For, you were transparent, you were here, you were present, and I really appreciate you taking the time. So what's your final message to Georgia?
Final message to Georgia is don't get discouraged by a lot of noise in politics. We obviously got some crazy people in positions of leadership. We got crazy policies happening. Social media is like taking over everybody's lives. Everyone feels isolated and depressed. There's like all kinds of things happening. But that doesn't mean our system's not working. In fact, we've got record numbers of voters coming out in all these elections year after year. Increasingly, people are recognizing the need to make their voices heard. And so, simple acts like registering to vote, registering your friends to vote, making sure to remind your friends to vote in every election, not just the big ones, not just the big presidential ones, but all the elections. Democracy can work. It's right there in our hands if we just want to grasp it and choose the leaders that we want. So I would say find leaders who make you inspired. You're not going to love everything about every politician, certainly not, but find the people closest to your affiliation and your viewpoint. Pursue those people, donate to their campaigns, get out and knock doors for them, vote for them, because that's the only way that things are going to change for the better. And there are people who are down to earth, kind of like what you said at the beginning of the podcast, that like you walk through the state legislature, it's real people. You can just go to your state capitol. You can go talk to state reps and state senators and have a conversation longer than 20 seconds sometimes. And I think if people felt like they knew that they could go have that directive access, that they would feel more empowered to try to advocate for the changes that they want. I think you're a really good example of that. So I wish people realize, it's almost like we have these riches of democracy all around us that are right there for the taking, and we can't let ourselves get too discouraged and thinking that we don't have a voice.
Yeah, so tell the audience, where can they find you and how can they support your campaign?
Well, thank you for asking. JoshForGeorgia.com. So JoshForGeorgia.com. And you've heard some of my various views tonight. We're going to get more like a fulsome issues page up later, but you'll see my endorsements. And look, I think it's all about standing up and fighting right now. We need politicians who have a spine, who are willing to say the truth out loud. Used to be 5 years ago, people wouldn't dream of coming on a podcast like this to talk openly about legalizing cannabis and whatever. And those days are over. We just got to be honest about good policy. And that's the kind of honesty, transparency, and energy I want to bring to be your next lieutenant governor. So JoshForGeorgia.com. My name is Josh McLaurin. It's been great to be on.
And you know what? I really appreciate this. And I'm hoping that this is not going to be the last time, because, of course, I'm going to be at the Capitol next year. Hopefully we'll have our pressure squad on deck. Because we're ready to mount up, because next year we want to expand medical cannabis and also pretty much remind those legislators that they work for us. And it is an election year, every 2 years. So.
Oh, yeah. You're going to get extra smiles from all the politicians in the hallway next year.
Oh, my goodness. So thank you again for joining us on this Civics edition. And make sure you subscribe, share, and turn to Your Rants Oversized Load Civics edition. Take care.
It's the Herbal Trucker coming through the airways. Real talk, no breaks. This is where truth stays. Rolling heavy with stories untold. Not just cannabis, we break the mold. From the streets to the halls, we hit every lane. Rants with purpose, changing the game. This life is laws, it's facts we unfold. This is oversized load, and we're setting the tone. Yo, rants on the mic, no fear, no code. The truth's too big, so hosted by the Herbal Trucker on track. Keep it real, keep it raw, ain't no turning back.